Hello, this is Sunil Sunder Raj with Top Preps. Today, I'm happy to be speaking with Anthony Gliffe, Director of College Recruitment for Illinois Lightning Baseball. Once again, Anthony, thank you again, for taking some time out to speak with me today. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you for, the next however many minutes and really have a deep discussion.
Yes, yes, indeed, Anthony. I think, right off the bat, if you want to just dive into, said what you've been able to accomplish here, said with, Illinois Lightning Baseball, just talk about what you do and what a daily schedule entails for you, Anthony.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me before I get into, let me give a little bit of background about myself.
Okay.
I was a Division II scholarship student athlete, played baseball at the D2 level, got my undergrad in special education. I got my master's in school counseling. Right out of my master's program, I was actually lucky enough to be an athletic academic advisor at the Division I level at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I was actually the department's learning specialist as well. Then I switched over to Lewis University, which was a Division II school, and I was also the athletic academic advisor there for over 450 student athletes at the Division II level and tracked their progress towards degree and their academic eligibility every semester. And then I'm starting my 11th year coaching high school baseball in the Chicagoland area. And then I'm also a school counselor during the day at a career and tech center. So I definitely think I have a really unique perspective and experience and draw upon my own experiences through the recruiting process. And this is probably to the date pretty close to it. This has been a full year for me with the Illinois Lightning. So they actually reached out. They actually posted this opportunity a year ago for a director of college recruitment. And I actually saw it and I'm like, wow, I couldn't believe it. Like, this is my passion to combine my coaching experience, my education, and my background and be able to support our baseball players, our student athletes and families with helping them moving on to the next level. Yeah. So I actually saw their opening, applied for it, interviewed, and actually got the position. And they recognized within their own organization that they had a lot of high-level players that needed some particular guidance in this particular area. Yeah. So my position is part-time, but I dedicate an extremely a ton of time to it, depending on the year. In the summers, I'm constantly out at our 16 and 17 U team games, and I'm evaluating our players and constantly evaluating them to see, where they might fit along the road when it comes time to get recruited for college baseball. In addition, our families and student athletes have access to me year round, where they can meet with me on a variety of different topics. If they want to get NCAA education, I can definitely educate them on that. I give them very helpful resources. Sometimes I cut up their video. Sometimes I'm reaching out or calling college coaches on behalf of them, sending emails out to college coaches. I take our roster and our schedule and I push it out to all the college coaches. And then I'm very, very big on social media and promoting our players and our Illinois Lightning brand on there. So I'm really trying to hit it from a multitude of different levels. Yeah. But at the core, my position works with our 14 through 17 U teams. That's what we're targeting. Our whole organization overall actually starts at 8U. But I don't work with those kids because there's not really a need to. But once they start to hit that summer of 8th grade going into the fall of high school, that's when I start to meet them. And I really stress to those student athletes and families to get off on the right foot academically in high school. Yeah. And then as they get older, the college picture becomes more clear, and then combining that with their baseball talents. So they can utilize me as much or as little as they want. I do not force them to do that. And I try to be respectful of that. But ultimately, the goal is for our student athletes who do have an interest in playing college baseball, that I support them through that process, along with our coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, no, excellent points you made, Anthony. I mean, the fact that, these student athletes, I mean, they're, balancing out the books and then also being on the field as well. And that, just I said again, meeting those standards, in terms of their grades as well. Just talk about that because, there's a lot of pressure on these kids, to succeed and, be able to, move up to that next level in college. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things that I like to hit first on with our student athletes, our families, especially at the young level, right? So when I'm meeting with a 14U or 15U kid, so like that eighth grade freshman year, the first question that comes out is, well, how do we start this recruiting process, showcases, camps, video? And I'm like, wait a second, let's slow down for a second. I go, you have time to develop. Okay. And I do not like to be a dream crusher. So I like to hear what their goals and aspirations are. If they want to play Division I baseball, great. You have 3 to 4 years to make that happen.
Yeah.
So I try to stay away from the baseball side of things because really what they need to do is just focus on being the most successful student they can be academically and athletically. So my education starts with the NCAA Initial Eligibility Center. And I like to make them aware of the counselor's role in that. I also like to make them aware of, scheduling courses is a big thing. So each high school on the NCAA high school portal will list their classes, their core classes that count for the NCAA. Mm-hmm. And I make sure that they're aware that that page exists. And I encourage them to print that out. And when they meet with their counselor, to make sure the classes that they're scheduling appear on that page. Okay. And then the next thing becomes is, well, then you have to be really successful academically because they're going to take those grades in those core classes and it's going to formulate a core GPA. Mm-hmm. And then it matches up with a test score on a sliding scale. And that sliding scale initially looks overwhelming, but I break it down in a way that makes it very easy to interpret. And then they end up having a sigh of relief because they're looking at these test numbers and they realize it's not as bad as what it looks. Yeah. And then I also really try to educate them on the initial eligibility centers for Division I and Division II student athletes. If they go the junior college route or Division III route, they don't really need to register with that, which can save them some money. And then NAI has their own separate process that I educate them on. So like I said, initially, it's really about educating them on that piece and then the role of the school counselor, which the big role of the school counselor is uploading those transcripts, the 7th semester, the final transcript, the initial transcript, and then making sure that they're taking classes that count towards the NCAA. Yeah. So that's the real big thing. Once we get into more of the college baseball, that's where I bring that piece in. But I got to tell you, as I'm learning this, as I'm always learning something new, even though I have a lot of experience with this, the college recruiting piece really is dictated by the student athlete's talent level. And, if we want to get into that, we can, because I have some really good insights on that, but I kind of save that for later on. And I really try to educate our student athletes and parents on the NCAA eligibility side of things.
Yeah. You talked about before the game changer with social media, because we see how many of these athletes are posting videos, of their practices, their games, I guess trying to get maybe a heads up and just, on the rest of the pack, just talk about that, how, you see that and just, the impact,
well, yeah, no, absolutely. Social media is a game changer. I encourage all of our Illinois Lightning baseball players who want to pursue college, they need to have a Twitter account. It's free. Okay. And obviously make it professional. Don't follow anything that is unacceptable. Don't get into maybe some of the stuff that might deter someone from taking a look at your profile. but I tell them to include their height, weight, GPA, any measurables, contact information. I encourage them to follow coaches and programs that they're interested in. And then I encourage them to post video regularly, then retweet it to these social media platforms such as Top Preps that does a great job. I tell our players and I retweet our players' videos all the time to you guys. And you guys do a phenomenal job of getting our players, my position, connected with college coaches. And I can tell you the interest is huge, because what starts to happen is you'll see college coaches start to follow you. And then when you hit the right point in your recruiting cycle or your recruiting timeline, I've actually had college coaches reach out to players over Twitter and officially offer them spots based on video. Because the reality is some of these college coaches don't have the same recruiting budget to be able to go out and see all these kids at all these different showcases and tournaments. Yeah. The other thing where it helps is if a college coach sees the video of one of our guys and likes it, he might go out and watch him this summer or in the spring if time allows. It's really amazing to see when our guys consistently put video on their social media, the number of followers they occur and the number of followers that are college coaches. It's pretty amazing. So I try to hit really hard on that. I also like to promote our rosters and our summer schedules. I encourage our Illinois Lightning coaches to do it. I encourage them to do it a week out before each tournament. Hey, here's who's pitching when, here's our lineup for the day, tag certain social media accounts. This is really critical for student athletes. And I think college coaches are utilizing this more than ever. And the best thing is it's free.
Yeah.
So I can't say enough about it. I think it helps. I think it can also really hurt if you don't treat your social media account the way you should. Yeah. So if you're immature, if you're following inappropriate things or you're saying inappropriate things, that also can really hurt as well. So obviously, in my position, and I know a lot of people who are in my position for other organizations are obviously not condoning or encouraging that type of behavior.
Yeah. I just wanted to piggyback to one point you made, just with the interaction with the families of these student athletes, just in terms, because as we know right now these days, cost of attending college is not, cheap. I mean, it definitely costs, quite a bit. I'm just wondering, if we can just talk about that component as well, Anthony.
Yeah. So, as far as when I work with families on the college piece, my job is to provide them different options and scenarios and help them articulate and interpret those. But at the end of the day, they're going to make the decision that's best for them. And that is the hard part of a school counselor, whether they're working with athletes or just students in general, or in my position as the director of college recruitment. It is not my job to tell the family and the student athlete, you should do this because this is why you should do it. I merely provide options and scenarios, and I provide accurate information and data that allows them to make the most informed decision possible regarding their career. And that's where I leave it. And I got to tell you, sometimes I'm sitting there and a family and a student athlete will make a decision and I'm like, oh, okay. But I have to put that aside. It's not my life. I'm not trying to live their life. You know what I mean? I would have done things maybe differently. That doesn't mean it was right or wrong. It just means it's right for them. So Sunil, I really try to put the brakes on it when I leave all the options out on the table for them. And I want them to make the right decision for themselves. Now, sometimes they'll push me and say, no, Tone, we want your advice. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That would be severe, in my opinion, severely inappropriate of me, so that's the biggest thing that I try to do when helping those families and those student athletes.
That's great. I want to just talk about the Illinois Lightning baseball program, just again, how special it is, and just in terms of, dealing with the coaches and players as well. I just wanted to ask you about that, Anthony.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a phenomenal organization. I'm excited to be a part of it. They have treated me and they have embraced me really well. The nice thing is they have a lot of resources in place to help their student athletes. We have our own indoor facility that is all turf. We're actually able to do infield on there and get somewhat of long toss in there. We have 5 different hitting cages. We got 2 pitching cages. We've got hitting machines and all of that. And then we have our own fields that we own where our guys can take advantage of that. And we have coaches with really good background in high school baseball, college baseball, even at the professional level. And it's really nice to see the development that takes place. We also attract kids from really good baseball communities. In my opinion, in the Chicagoland area, there's a couple of really good communities or areas that I think have high level baseball for Illinois. And I think a lot of the areas we draw out of, we get kids from really solid programs that come in here and want to compete and develop and get better. And I was really excited when they had this position and brought me in, and they felt like this was kind of like the cherry on the top or the icing on the cake, so to speak, to really tie everything off. And I know at the end of the day, their mission is the same as mine. They're not just developing baseball players, they're also developing individuals, and they want these kids to turn into just really good people. Okay. And that really shares my vision and my role. And I'm not trying to make this a blanket statement for other travel organizations, but I see it a lot, is they're all about the D1 kid. They're all about the D1 kid and promoting the D1 kid, right? I'm about retention, and I can speak for Illinois Lightning baseball because they share the same philosophy as me. I'm about retention for our student athletes and families. To me, it doesn't matter what division. I want them to go somewhere where they're going to stay for 4 years and have the best possible opportunity to play baseball, the best experience, and have the best experience to get an excellent degree in whatever they're choosing to do. So at the end of the day, my goal down the road is I want to say, hey, 98 or 99% of our Illinois Lightning players that went on to play in college stayed at the school they originally committed to. Because a lot of these other programs will say, well, we've had so many kids go D1 in the last 5 years. Well, let's break that down for a second. How many of those kids actually stayed? Do you know the percentage of those kids that left maybe after their first year? So I try to be really targeted. Illinois Lightning tries to be really targeted in the way we support our student athletes and families. So I take a whole different look and vision towards it that I think parents could really get behind. You know what I'm saying? And I think you see it right out by where you are. I think everybody gets caught up in this Division One. We're only going to promote our Division One kids because that's what sells our place, and that's what gets that's what gets the parents interested. I'm more about retention. I want to make sure they go to the right fit, because if we have 20 kids that go on to college in a class and 80% of them leave that school they committed to, then we didn't do our job. In my opinion, we didn't. So I try really hard to work with our student athletes and families to make sure that their decision they're making, they're going to stay at that school for 4 years and be in the best baseball situation and be in the best academic situation. And I know our coaches, our staff, and our owners at the Illinois Lightning support that vision as well.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I think it's so, as you said, it's so important. You're developing, these people. I mean, life lessons. This is just not about academics and athletics and then going on to college. It's beyond that as well, Anthony.
Absolutely, because I demand a lot out of myself in this role. I also demand a lot out of our students, our families, and our coaches. It takes everybody. Okay. But if I want to focus, I'm going to focus on the student athletes for a second. Okay. I always tell them I'm not going to work harder than them at their own recruitment. The reason why they need to take a lot of autonomy and ownership in this process is because we're helping them develop those skills that you're talking about, those transferable skills that are going to help them in other aspects of their life, right? So you talk about determination, their focus, handling adversity, their work ethic, attention to detail. You know, if a kid's putting in all the time with me and his family is with me and our coaches, and he ends up getting somewhere, I hope through that experience of him working on himself, trying to get somewhere, I hope that serves him well when he gets older and he gets into other aspects of his life. Does that make sense what I'm going for there?
No, definitely. That's spot on. Then again, it's so critical, you know, especially, you know, and you know, something else I wanted to ask you about as well. And I think, you know, a lot of high school kids, athletes are dealing with this these days is mental health as well, because I mean, there's so much pressure on these athletes, you know, again, to perform, you know, said, you know, not only both in the classroom, but on the field. Can you talk about that as well, Anthony?
Yeah, I'll share my personal story with you because I went through mental health issues. So Sunil, I'll start it from the beginning, okay? I grew up playing baseball very early, started at 3, got on high-level travel teams at 8 or 9, and I worked really hard at baseball. I sacrificed a lot of my social life for it because I saw that my hard work was paying off, okay? I get to high school, I'm starting to play with varsity and fall ball as an 8th grader. I move up to varsity at the end of my freshman year. I start as a sophomore. And then, as they say, the rest is history, you know, all conference and started and got scholarship offers, played Division II baseball. I started quite a bit as a freshman. And I got to tell you that through all those experiences, I put a lot of pressure on myself. Okay. And it just built and built and built and built. And I used to get so crazy in my thoughts. Okay. If I were to struggle, you know, it would just manifest and snowball because I start to think, well, I'm letting down my teammates, my coaches. Okay. I'm letting down everybody else. People are only going to like me if I'm good at baseball. You know, if I struggled, am I ever going to hit the baseball again? I mean, these are thoughts that went through me even when I was 19 or 20 at the peak of my baseball and physical development in a sport where you fail over 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So I really self-sabotaged myself. And I didn't let my teammates know. I didn't let my coaches know. Didn't let my family know because I was ashamed to admit that, you know, and the sole thing that it revolved around is athletic identity. Okay. And I've actually done presentations on mental health stuff for student athletes because I went through it myself. And I wanted to be in a position to make sure that I could support other athletes to make sure they wouldn't go through this. That's a huge reason why I went the athletic academic advising route in higher ed. And athletic identity is where you get solely tied to your sport, that nothing else about your life gets acknowledged or developed. So I didn't see myself as coaching and being a school counselor and helping out students with learning disabilities and enjoying weightlifting and playing golf and fishing. I didn't see any of that to me. All I saw was I was a baseball player. I have a really good opportunity to do something special with this game and I'm blowing it. Like that's the level that I took it to. And my career snowballed. I ended up transferring out of my first school because our coach left and our new coach that, you know, came in, I don't think saw eye to eye or maybe saw the same value in me as that our previous coach did. I transferred to 2 other schools only for it to not work out. And I never got to play my junior or senior year in college. I played in a couple of summer leagues in college down in Kentucky and Tennessee, but the point I'm trying to make is my career really snowballed. And a lot of it was because of the self-harm I did to myself in terms of my mental state, my thought process. And Sunil, it got so bad that I was so depressed afterwards that I ate and drank and I blew up 120 pounds in 3 years.
Wow.
Because of how upset I was with how things went down.
Yeah.
And when I got into my grad program, I really studied the mental side of student athletes. And that's where I learned about where I went wrong with myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's bring this back now to what can student athletes do to support themselves? Okay. My wholehearted opinion is student athletes need to develop value in themselves in other areas of their life while maintaining the importance of their sport. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that is a lot, okay? But I think it can be doable. Because if someone would have talked to me and back then and said, hey, Tony, don't worry about it. It's just baseball. Life goes on. Well, no, it's important to me. So we need to maintain the importance, but how can I develop other areas and aspects of my life that help make me a more well-rounded person? Mm-hmm. My teammates in college that did the best, at the end of the day, they had other things going for them outside of baseball. I just solely focused on, well, all I got is baseball and that's it. So if I were to give advice to families and student athletes that are upcoming through the ranks, whether it's high school, college, is create value for yourself in other aspects of your life. And I'll give you a quick example. If you're a student athlete in college and your major is journalism, go write for the student newspaper, go write for the school newspaper, do other things to expand your skill set so that you're not just all eggs in one basket. Does that make sense?
No, I agree. I think, yeah, it is, again, it's essential, to have, other interests, because, again, as you said, that risk of burnout, when you're so fixated, on that one task, that one goal, and then you just lose sight and focus, as you said, of, what else is important in life as well.
Absolutely. If I could do this all over again, knowing what I know now, I still would have worked hard at the game. So here's the interesting thing with baseball for me, right? It really affected me in this one area, but in the other area, it helped me develop a really fierce work ethic that has helped me be successful in all the different other professional things that I've decided to take on. So when I explain this to people, it's really weird. Like in one way, it's helped me tremendously to the point where I don't know if I'd be as successful as I am now. I don't know if I'd have the same work ethic and drive and motivation that I do now if I didn't approach baseball that way. Yeah. But on the other hand, it really affected me, and this is how it affected me mental health wise. So when I look back, I asked myself, could I have done other things and still work hard at baseball? Could I have been a kid, gone to a party, gone to a birthday party, go out with friends that night, and also still work hard at baseball? The answer is yes. I believe it is. It's just how you structure and manage your time. There's so many hours in a day. And I feel like I could have still put in the same amount of effort and focus into baseball, but then also done other things to allow me to develop other aspects of myself. And that's what I would encourage also student athletes and families to do. You can still work hard at your sport, but still allow yourself to be a kid or be a human or go out and do other things. You don't have to be in it 24/7, So that's the one thing. If I could go back and approach it differently, I would do it differently. I would acknowledge other aspects of myself. I would try to create value in other aspects of my life. And then I would try to manage my time differently where, hey, this time's reserved for my focus in baseball. But after I'm done with that, I'm going to go out and have fun or go do other things or get into some other interests that I might have.
Yeah, that's what I always ask athletes about time management, being organized. I mean, that's, again, being able to, again, balance that out, between, as you said, between your, academics, your athletics, and then again, outside of that realm. I just have a couple more left, Anthony. I can't thank you for the time. But I want to ask you, I think it's also important is support from your family as well.
The support from your
From
family?
your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, during this journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because, you know, my mom wanted me to be more of a kid, where my dad was really hard on me with baseball. I'm
Mhm.
glad he was, to a certain extent. But when I learned all this information in my grad school, right, and I started doing this stuff, I actually sat and talked to my dad. I go, "You realize we did this all wrong?" And he felt horrible. He goes, "Tone, I was just trying to do what I thought was best back in the day." And I'm like,
Mhm.
I know. I'm like, I'm not upset with you. I'm just saying, like, here's what all these athletes go through and struggle with. And I'm like, we really went about it the wrong way.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's a situation where, maybe he would have a do-over as well with me. Um, as well as, I would like to. But like I said, that's why I think it's important to educate, and it's not only the athletic identity piece, it's also retirement due to the sport and eligibility.
Mhm.
That's a hard transition for student athletes once they exhaust their eligibility and there's no more. And then when there's retirement due to injury.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've done in my position, Sunil, that I think is super important is I try to make student athletes aware of the transferable skills that they earn as a student athlete,
Yeah.
and how it works in the world of work, and how they can be a really good candidate or an employee for a company, a school district, or wherever. There are really a lot of skills that athletes learn in their time as a student athlete that really can help them accelerate in other parts of their life and their career or their next chapter. And I try to encourage and help student athletes and families identify those things all the time, especially when I worked in higher education with college athletes.
Yeah, that's where you're providing that guidance, that mentorship. And I think that, and you've seen it over the years, the landscape has changed, but that I think in this day and age today, especially Anthony, is so vital because I think a lot of student athletes are searching for that. And, you're providing again, outstanding, resource, for them.
Absolutely.
Uh, just trying to think what else I can ask you. Just talk about in terms of the relationship with the colleges as well, or also with the NCAA. I think that's something I wanted to definitely, just from you, if you want to describe just that process as well. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. The relationship with the colleges and the families are critical. So here's what I tell families, okay? And this is what I tell our coaches. I go, I have an extremely tough job, okay? I have to be objective about your player, your son, your daughter, okay? And I cannot afford to mislead a college coach, because if I mislead a college coach, there goes our whole relationship.
Mhm.
So I am very straightforward. I am extremely objective with these parents and the student athletes. And I don't do it in a way that's mean or harsh. I try to be very, very straightforward and compassionate. I also try to provide data. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, okay, well, hey, your 60 times here, your outfield time is here, or your infield. Measurables is a part of the evaluation. The other part of the evaluation is what I see when I go and watch them in a game.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how do they handle when they see a pitcher 85 to 90? How do they manage their strike zone? How consistent are they in their at bats, their approach? How consistent are they in the field? How do they handle off speed stuff? Can they hit the other way? Can they situationally hit? Can they bunt? How do they treat their teammates? What's their body language like? Do they get into arguments with umpires? What are their parents like in the stands? That is here's a helpful piece of advice for families out there. How you interact and how you carry yourself as a parent will sometimes hinder your kid from getting an opportunity with a college coach. Yeah. Because I've had college coaches tell me they don't want to deal with crazy parents. And that is an indication of how their son's going to be.
Mhm.
You know, I've heard of parents going up to coaches, college coaches, and say, hey, my son's number 17. Don't do that. The good players, the parents of good players don't need to say anything.
Yeah.
They get found on their own.
Yeah.
So getting back to your question, I am extremely objective and thorough with our student athletes and families. I cannot afford to mislead a college coach for any of our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's hard for a parent to hear and a student athlete to hear. But I try to support data and my observation as to why I am projecting them where they're at. Okay. And like I said, I can't afford to mislead a college coach because, like I said, I lose that relationship. And here's where I can't mislead a student athlete and their family. If I say their student athlete, their son is this caliber of ball player, and then they go out and we reach out to those schools and they hear nothing back, they're going to look at me like I don't know what I'm talking about. So I have a really fine line, and I don't mind doing it. I'm good at it, but it's just a very tough position that you're in. And like I said, I make our coaches, our student athletes and families aware that there is going to be no fluff with me, you know, and at the end of the day, they should be blessed that they have an opportunity to play baseball, regardless of what division it is.
Yeah. I mean, I graduated from a Division III school. I see, again, the immense talent that is on that level, and especially here living in New Jersey. And I said nothing wrong about, attending and graduating from a D3 school.
No, there isn't. And I'll tell you, Sunil, more than ever, the gap has condensed between divisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, your LSU and Texas's are always going to be a difference, right? The Power 5 D1. But I got to tell you, it's been amazing being in this role and how things have changed. There's Division III and Division II schools that are getting D1 guys. And I tell my players and families this all the time. If you end up being a bona fide Division I prospect, expect the top Division II and top Division III and the top JUCOs to want you, because they all want the same kid. And you should not put your nose up at any of them because they're all talented. It's really amazing on how the talent gap between all the divisions has shrunk. Mm-hmm. Because 15, 20 years ago when I played, you could argue that there was a noticeable difference. But I'm telling you, there's Division III schools who get kids who are 87 to 88. Yeah. We have, in my opinion, just north of us in Wisconsin, probably the best Division III conference in the country for baseball. It's called the WIAC, the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. And it's with Oshkosh, Whitewater, Stevens Point, La Crosse. Those guys are getting players that a lot of normal Division III schools don't get. It's just, that's basically what I'm getting at. The talent gap has changed, right? The other thing is COVID and the transfer portal has changed the landscape completely. Yeah. And I really try to harp on my student athletes and families. You guys just need to throw divisions out the window, because if you're a Division II coach or Division I coach and you've got a kid who's already played 2 years of college in the transfer portal, who do you think they're going to recruit? The kid in the transfer portal or the kid fresh out of high school? Yeah. Right? Whatever opportunity, whatever program or coach reaches out to you and who is genuinely interested in you, be appreciative of that and actually see that relationship through. I know a lot of kids get caught up in division and all that stuff. More than ever, we need to throw that out the window, because the talent gap between divisions is shrinking, and because of the transfer portal. Yeah. You know, I mean, think about it. You're a college coach and you have an opportunity to get a shortstop who played D1 for 2 years and wants to transfer, and you're a D2 or another D1 program. You're going to take that kid over the high school kid because he's battle tested already. Yeah. You know, so I feel bad for the upcoming classes. The other thing is baseball programs, their rosters are getting stacked now because of all the extra eligibility that the NCAA gave because of COVID. So that's another important topic. I'll was going to say, do you have much, have you seen much with verbal commitments in your area?
Uh,
Kids verbal
I,
committing?
yeah, a tad bit. It's not a substantial amount, but I've seen, seen some. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's another topic that I try to bring up a lot. I think a lot of student athletes and families get caught up in the verbal commitment.
Yeah.
And, they want to be able to say, well, I'm verbally committed to Louisville. Well, here's the truth about verbal commitments. They don't mean a thing until you sign on the dotted line in the fall of your senior year during the national letter of intent.
Yeah.
Because here's what can happen. You could get injured. You could degress. You could get better. The coach could leave. The coach could find somebody else. All these different things can happen. That's why I put absolutely no stock in verbal committing. And I'm actually not a fan of people verbal committing. And the NCAA came out with research. They said kids that commit before their junior year in high school, verbally commit, majority of them end up leaving the institution that they committed to.
Yeah.
So if I could tell families and student athletes another thing, don't get caught up in the verbal commitment. Every athlete has a different recruiting timeline that they're going to experience. Okay. The kids that are doing something really exceptional for their age group on a national level, their recruiting process is going to happen a little sooner. Okay. We had a kid in our program last year who was sitting upper 80s to low 90s. He ended up verbally committing to Wichita State. And that was before he even threw a pitch his junior year at the varsity level. Okay. But he was doing something exceptional on a national level. So I was getting calls from D1 coaches. I was sending his stuff out and things were happening faster, right? But then there's the standard timeline where most athletes fall under. It is after their junior season, that summer going into the fall of their senior year. That is when the standard recruiting timeline happens for most individuals. That's when it happened to me. I think that is when student athletes and their families should sit down with coaches who they trust and really get a feel for what their ability level is.
Yeah.
Right after their junior season on varsity, going into that summer and then going into the fall of their senior year. And then the last recruiting timeline is the late bloomer, right? Maybe a kid didn't do well his junior year, but all of a sudden he hits a growth spurt. Maybe he added 10 miles an hour on his fastball. Now that puts him in a whole different recruiting dynamic that he never would have thought would have happened. The only negative to that is it shrinks your time to be able to make a decision with college. So for me, there's 3 different recruiting timelines that happen. One that happens early where you see your sophomores verbally committing. That's because they're doing something on an exceptional level. For most athletes, it's that standard, which is after their junior season and that summer, and then some are late bloomers where it's happening in the spring of their senior year. So I always try to tell my athletes and families they're going to fall into one of those, and it doesn't matter which one they fall into. It's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I can't thank you enough, Anthony. It's just really, sort of enjoyed this conversation. You provide, so much comprehensive info just on, the process here. Just when it comes to recruitment here, said for these high school kids, they, are looking at, prospective colleges. In closing, what your message, I guess, is to the student athletes out there, said they're going to be watching this.
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest message is if you guys have certain goals and aspirations and you want to play Division I or wherever it is, well, you have from now hearing my message until your recruiting timeline happens to make that happen. Grades are super important. Make sure that you take care of academically in the classroom because it's going to open as many opportunities as it can hinder. So I think those are 2 really big critical things. And then the other thing I'll tell you is when your recruiting timeline does hit and you're out at your tournament, your showcase, your game, you never know who's watching. It is very important how you carry yourself. And don't think you need to go 3 for 4 in a game to impress a college coach. I've had kids get scholarship offers for stuff that you wouldn't even believe. I had a catcher back up a throw that went awry and he saved a run. And I had a college coach in the attendance that day, and he's like, I'm good. I saw enough. I want him. Just because of that, because he saw the throw was going offline and decided to back it up and save it from going in the dugout, which would have been an extra base. It's just little things like that.
Yeah.
So you never know who's watching. That's a huge thing that I'll say.
Sounds good. Hey, just incredible honor and privilege, Anthony. I can't thank you enough once again. Just wishing you continued success. Again, as the director of college recruitment at Illinois Lightning Baseball.
Thanks, Sunil. I really appreciate the opportunity for you letting me speak. And, you know, if you want to do a part 2 down the road where we can get more into maybe more different topics of recruiting, I would love to share my expertise and experience on it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Anthony.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.